Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Bootcamp. In today's session, we'll be working on a to-do application on the JAMStack. We'll be working with Gatsby, Netlify, FaunaDB, um, and all of these technologies that we've been working with React to build this to-do application. Um, so let's see how far we get today.
Mm-hmm.
You
Let's
guys
start.
want to add something?
No. Let's start.
Let's get into it. Okay. So I'll share my screen. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
We can't see
So
you, but we can see the
you
screen.
can see the screen. Okay.
Mhm.
Let's see now. So let's start with a Git repository. And what we can do is we'll just go to GitHub. And we can create a new repository for this project. So we can call this JAMStack Todo. Create a new repository for this project. So do application with React, Gatsby, Netlify, FaunaDB. And we'll add a readme and we can add a git.ignore as well. We'll just add it later. Okay, so that's our repository we'll be using. And I'll just use GitHub desktop and clone it. Still not showing up. Okay, so that's our GitHub project created. And now let's open this up in Code Studio. And let's open a terminal. Okay, so I'm gonna follow along with that project that we've seen already. So initially now that we have our GitHub, uh, let's start a new project. So we'll initialize with yarn. So now we have our package.json file here, which is just the basic version of it. And what we need to do here is we'll set private to true, and then workspaces. We want to add packages. So all of our workspaces would be included here. And let's save the package.json file, and now we can close out of here, clear the terminal, and now we can create a folder for the packages. So folder and then packages. And then once inside here, now we want to create the folder for where we'll create our Gatsby project. And then here we'll initialize new package.json. So now we have the www folder here. So I'm going to close out of here, and inside open a new terminal. And now we can, here we'll be building the Gatsby app here. So we'll have to add Gatsby, React, and React DOM.
What we're trying to do is basically create a to-do app using Gatsby and Netlify and Netlify functions and rest of the stuff. Basically a full stack application.
Yeah. Okay, so it looks like everything is done here. So now we have in our packages, we have the package.json, and inside of here, we would like to add, to make it easier, when we build the application or want to run it in the dev. So let's scripts. So we'll have the development script, which would run Gatsby develop, and build, which would run Gatsby build, and then clean to run Gatsby clean. So And now we can start with the actual pages. So now inside of the Gatsby project here, we'll create a source folder. And then inside of it, we'll create pages. And then this is where we'll have the index file. And then here we're just going to have a basic React application, a React function. So our basic React function, and then now we want to add the Gatsby config file. So our Gatsby config file created, and inside of it for now we're just going to have module.exports. Now we can try and run this. So in our project root, you can run yarn workspace develop. Spelling. In this, so we have our basic hello world running. We'll add a new file here for the git ignore. Not here. Main. And so this is our basic Gatsby site is working. So I'm going to push this. Commit. So maybe I shouldn't commit all the node modules. Okay, let's keep going. Let's set up the Gatsby site with Netlify as well. So let's open up Netlify. Netflix, Netlify. And log in. Okay, and then
I think, Adil, you have not.
I think I shouldn't have the node modules here.
Just git ignore it.
Stop this. Should I exit out of it and try it again?
Most probably.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, now it's pushed. So make sure here. I think we're good. So now let's add this to Netlify from GitHub. And I've already been authorized, so it's not asking again. And JAMStack. And I just want the main branch. For the build command, right now our Gatsby app is in the www, so we're just going to have this. And then our published directory is going to be packages www public, and then we can deploy this. We can update the name of the site here. So instead of having some random Netlify name, we can switch it. We can call this JAMStack Todo beside my name. Okay. See if it's working here. Is it? It's still building. It's good now. There we go. So now it's deployed to Netlify as well. So okay, so now we don't have to worry about the deployment. We just have to worry about our code now. Now let's come back to our project. Okay, so now we have to start working on the UI for the To-Do app. And we can use a few different UI libraries. In this project, it's using theme UI. So let's work with theme UI then. So in our Gatsby file, we're going to add the dependencies for working with theme UI. So let's install that. So with yarn add theme UI, and then also theme UI presets to have all the dependencies to get the theme UI components. While this happens, we can look at the theme UI. Yeah, this is theme UI. So if we're working with Gatsby, has another link here as well. This shows like how to do the installations. We might use this in a second as well. First, we want to see how to add the theme to an application with the theme provider. So we can import the theme provider from theme UI, which is installing right now, and then we can also get the theme. So once we have that, we can wrap our application inside of the theme provider and then provide the theme, whichever one we're using. So let's see. Okay, this is installed. What we'll do now is we'll create the wrap root element JS file. And then inside of this, what we'll have is, just copy this firstly. And we have to update inside of this. So first, which theme we're getting. So we'll get, there's multiple themes. So there's light and dark, deep, Swiss. So the tutorial video was using deep, so maybe we can use light instead. So import, we'll do light from, and instead of here, we'll do add theme UI presets. Okay, and then inside of the provider here, we want to update this to light as well, because that's the theme we're using. And then next thing we want to do is update, instead of props, this is going to be a wrapper for elements. So we're going to have to wrap, we're going to have to make this element. And then also, instead of props.children, it would be the element that we're wrapping. So like this. Now the next thing we can create the Gatsby browser JS file. So create a new file, Gatsby browser.js. So this, we'll get the code for this from the Gatsby wrap root element file here, and we just need to get, so this is the example code that they've provided. We need to have a similar kind of thing. Copy this. And then, so in our example, we're not using Redux, and we're not using the store here, so we just need React. And we created our own wrap root element.js file, so we're going to use that. So we'll have wrap root element, follow the syntax, so require, and then here we'll give the URL of the wrap root element file. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll just export this wrap root element file. So we don't need all of this. And then we can duplicate this file. Is it not let me? Just do this. A new file called Gatsby ssr.js with the same content. Okay, so now we have the Gatsby browser and the Gatsby SSR done. Now come back to the wrap root element, and we need to update the syntax here a little bit, so we're following the same constant require syntax. So instead of doing the import, we'll do a constant. And then instead of export default, this would be module.exports. This. Okay. And now let's try and rebuild the Gatsby. Develop. Okay, let's check this again. Okay, so we have the theme imported. It's not applied to the hello world because I haven't put any tags on there. Okay. Now let's work on the UI. So I'll come back. I can get out of these files and switch into the index. Okay. So here now, instead of having a div here, we'll have a container working with theme UI, then close the container. And for this, I'll wrap this in a H1. Okay. And we probably have to try this again. I have to import container from theme UI. Okay, so now it's showing the container. What's the issue here? It's fine. Okay. So next thing we'll do is there is an issue with this applying the max width property. So we have to fix this. And we can do it by updating the wrapper, the wrap root element. So the wrap root element. And here we want to import the theme. Okay, we already have it. And now I need to import I have imported the light theme. And next, what we do is use that to create a new theme with the size updated. So we'll have constant, we'll just call it new theme. And we'll use the light theme and then add sizes with container size 1024. And then the theme now would be, instead of light, we'll use new theme. Okay, so now we have the container size there. Okay, let's keep going now. The next thing we'll do is to start work on the UI. We'll add a heading and a button from theme UI. Okay, so in our index, instead of having the hello world, we'll have heading, and here I'll just say do app, and button for login. And then this we'll have as a heading 1. Okay, and then we also need to import these heading and the button from theme UI. Now we have the heading and the button. Okay, next. We can wrap the heading and the button inside of a Flex container. So we can organize it a little bit. So we'll have a Flex container. And give it some custom styling. It's a flex box, so flex direction, we want it to be a column so that it's aligned vertically. Okay. And we need flex here as well. Okay. Now we can add some padding here. So we just do here padding. Give us some space. So, and then, so the padding gave us space around the flex box. To add space between here, this is just simple CSS. So we'll add a margin on the button. Okay, and then next, once right now, if we click on the button, nothing happens. But if we want to click on the button and have some sort of action triggered, we should have code for this. So we can we're going to have an on-click function. On-click here. So whenever we click on the button, we can run a simple function here, arrow function, that all it does is just have an alert. It says another that says button, or we can just say login. It's rebuilding. I think should be a color. What's the font color for? I'm not sure how the coloring works in this. It's just color. Oh, I think it has to be in. Oops. Okay. So now if we click on it, we have the alert box for login. So now we have a simple Gatsby app working with theme UI with a basic heading and a button. So we can commit this. I'll just add it theme UI. Okay. Next thing we'll do is add some authentication for user authentication. And for this, we'll be using Netlify, Netlify identity. Okay, so let's switch up to the, let's exit out of here. Just close all of these extra terminals. Okay, now in the www directory, I'll come here and then inside of it, we need to install the Netlify identity widget. So here I'll come and switch into the, I'm here already, and then I'll add with yarn Netlify identity widget, which we'll use for the user authentication with Netlify. Okay, so that's added. Now let's restart the Gatsby site. Yarn workspace. Let's go back to the index file. Okay, now we want to add the, now that we have the Netlify identity widget installed, we want to use that now. So firstly, we'll import it. We'll add the Netlify identity from Netlify identity widget. Okay, now that we have imported this, we need to start using it inside of our function here. So what I'll do is, okay. So yeah, okay. So now inside of this function, what we'll do is change up the structure a little bit. we return. And so here, to start with, we'll use the use effect to initialize the Netlify identity. Use effect. And then inside of the use effect, I just need to start Netlify identity initialize. And then return the container. Okay, and then I need to also add use effect from React. Get stuck. All right, so now we've initialized the Netlify identity widget. Next, we'll go to Netlify itself. And in the project dashboard here, go to the identity tab and we'll enable identity. Okay, so now identity is enabled. Now, one more thing we gotta do here inside of the container where we're doing the render. Instead of having the alert, we'll show the login. So here, instead of having the alert, we'll call Netlify identity and open the login. Spelling. Okay, so now we have the login kind of, it's showing up. I need to give the URL of my Netlify site. I just need to do this. Okay, so now I have the sign up and login with Netlify identity authentication. If I try to do this, so it says the confirmation message was sent. Click the link to continue. Check my email. So I have an email. So I just have to confirm my email address. And I think that should have verified me. So let me try logging in. Oh, this isn't. This one. Refresh. Maybe it's because I haven't deployed it yet. Okay. I'm gonna push this and check it on the actual server. So this was Netlify identity. Okay, so now the site should update. So it's building. It's stuck. Go. Um, what's wrong with it? I pushed it.
Most probably it's still building.
Really? I thought it finished.
Mm-hmm.
Close. It says finished.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe try to hard refresh.
There we go. Not confirmed. Should I try confirm again? Okay, now it's working. So now it says logged in as Adil. And then I can log out. If I try logging in again, okay, good. So now the Netlify identity is working. Okay. So let's move to the next step, which is adding routes using Gatsby and then using Netlify identity to control the access to the client side route. Okay, so let's go back to our code. I'm going to close all of these tabs that don't do anything for me now. Keep this one, get rid of this. Okay, now back into our app. I'm going to add, okay, so what we're trying to do now is to add add another page for the dashboard, where once you log in, you'll be able to see the to-do list basically. So let's see. Here, what we want to do is have some sort of nav bar. And what we're using here is within theme UI, there's a nav link component. So we're just going to use this. And then firstly, we got to import the nav link. Importing nav link and then copying the theme UI code into the container here. Right, so that's my container. So now it should have here. So here's the nav link. Just some simple nav bar in the header. Okay, now what we'll do is update the nav links and have it work with the Gatsby routes. So first, I just need 2 of them. I don't need a third one. I'll get rid of this one. So I'll have home, I'll have dashboard. And then for the links, I'll update this. So this will be styled as a link. Okay, and then the link will be to, so the home will just be to the root, and then for the dashboard, as link to, and this will send to app, the app URL. Okay. Let's see, link is not defined, so we need to import link. Gatsby. So we have home and dashboard. And okay, so yeah, so right now if you click on dashboard, it shows that 404 error because we don't have it created yet. It's fine. And then home is just taking us back to the root page. Okay. Next thing, in the header itself, here, we'll add one more thing to display the username if it's logged in. So for this, we'll have nav link. Have the same structure. So the nav link, and then here we're going to have the username, which we'll get from the user object from Netlify identity. User metadata, and it's the full name. Okay, and it says user is not defined, so we need to create the state for the user. Okay, so what we'll do now is have the user data created. So let's see. What I'll do is up here, where I'll do what we need to do is we need to have the state for the user, which will contain the user, which users signed in, the user's details. Then we also need to have the, so we've initialized the Netlify identity. We also need to have what happens when the user logs in. We need to get the user, so we need to set which user is logged in at the login event, and then when it logs out, we need to reset the user. So for this now, so first thing, indentation is being weird because I have to get out of this. Right. One thing I need to do here, firstly, I'll create the state. The indentation being so funny. Okay. So firstly, I'll create the state. So for the user, so I'll have the user and the set user. And this will be from the use state. Okay, looks like it. Just do this then. Set user, and then the initial state is just going to be empty. Okay, so that sets our user state. So that would get rid of the user not defined issue. The other thing we need to do is now actually set the user when the user logs in. So using Netlify identity, when it logs in, so we'll have a event handler here on the login event. So whenever the login event triggers, what we need to do is call a function here. So we'll pass it in a parameter called user, and in the execution, what we'll do is firstly, once it logs in, we want to close because what happens is when we click on the login button, we open the Netlify identity. So here we want to close it. And then also use the set user method here to update the state with the user from the login event. Okay, so That's our event handler for the login event. We also need one for the logout event. So when we do Netlify identity on logout, here again we need to have a function. This time we don't really need the user data, so we just have a blank arrow function, which will, all we gotta do here is, again, we want to close the Netlify identity. And then also, so before we set the user using the logged in user, but now since we're logging out, we want to set the user again. But this time we'll just make it empty, so there's no user data. And it says use state is not defined, so we need to add use state. So now we'll have access to the user whenever this decides to run. Okay, I think this is stuck. User metadata of undefined. If we have to check users there. Okay. So now it shows the username when I'm logged in. And if I'm I guess am I permanently logged in? Because if I log out, then it goes away. Okay. So now we have that done. So if we have now if I click on the dashboard, it's showing the 404 because we don't really have the page created yet. So let's work on this. We need to create the page. And for this, we'll use a plugin with Gatsby. So, okay, for now, I'm gonna close the development server. Okay, so now we'll add with yarn the Gatsby plugin, create client paths. So that's added now. Okay, next thing we'll do is in the Gatsby config file, this was empty, so we'll add plugins. And this will be for this, the result will be Gatsby, the name of the plugin we just installed, Gatsby plugin create client paths. And in the options for this, we'll give the prefix. And the prefix will be, so here we want to add app, anything that follows app. And now we can add the app.js here. Okay, so for this now in app.js, we want to use the router. And here we're using reach router. And let's see here. We just if we look at the basic rendering, we can use this code. In the app.js, minus a few things. We don't need to do this. We don't need the home. Okay, and then instead of the render function, we'll just have a export default. And we'll return this. And the path will be app. Okay. So that's our initial code for the app. Okay, next what we want to do is what we want to do is make sure that we have the Netlify identity working in this URL as well. So what we'll do is we'll include the user, the Netlify identity. So let's import that first. Import the Netlify identity from Netlify identity widget. And here, where we're doing the dash function here, we want to return. So this will be a little bit more than this. So what we want to do is we want to get the current user. So in our user, we can have Netlify identity and call the current user method here to find out which user is currently logged in. And then inside of the return, now we can have the code that we had previously, this one. Except I need this part. Here we go. Let's try this again. Let's see, command fill. ESLint plugin has unmet peer dependency. Did I spell something wrong? Yeah.
You need to install, I guess, this plugin. Okay.
Okay, so no name. If I log in, now it has my name. If I go to dashboard, it has my name. If I refresh it, it goes away. So if I go to dashboard, my name is there initially, but if I refresh it, it's lost. So the reason for this is because there's no context. and we do get the state initially, but if the page is refreshed, if the app route is refreshed, it loses the data. So we need to give it access in a way that the data doesn't disappear. So to do this, we need to add some context and use the context instead. So let's go back to our main app, and instead of using like a current user like this, what we'll do is create a context. So firstly, let's create a file for the context. So Netlify identity context. And this will contain the context we'll use to have access to the user, to the Netlify identity anywhere in the application. So this, we just need to have React, fire React, and then the, I'll just copy this. Okay. And so now inside of this, we need to create the context. So this can be identity context. And here we'll do react.create context. Should be empty. And then we need to, for this context, we need to export the provider. And we'll return so now we need to return the wrapper for the provider. Here will be, so the identity context provider. Inside of it, we'll have props.children. And then for the provider itself, we need to give it some values here. Firstly, the identity, which will be from Netlify identity. And then the other value is the user, which will be undefined. So that's our initial context. Next thing we can do is the provider that we've written. If we come back to our index, we added this code here. So the use state for the user, the use effect for the initializing, the login, and the logout. All of this we can copy and move over to the provider. So here, I'll paste all of this. So now in the context, we're setting the state. We're using the use effect to initialize the identity, and then the login and logout event handlers as well. And then we can also export the exports.identity context. and we'll just export this thing. So now we have the context and the provider. Okay. Next, we can import the context into the wrapped root element. So here we'll come and import the provider from the Netlify identity context. Okay, and then guess I haven't imported all of this.
Adil, I hope that you are not tired. Would you like to continue or continue in the next class?
I can go for a little bit and then we can continue on the next class. You guys can sign off if you want to, or it's up to you. What should we do?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So, um, I think the issue here is the ESLint issue. Let me do this. Instead of do this const and then export it. Thought it finished. So every time I save it, it finishes, but then it starts rebuilding again.
I think you are tired. Okay, let's. Why don't you just continue developing and pushing the code, and we will start the next project in the next class. And you just review the code when we start the class.
Okay, so you want me to finish it and then just run through it in the next class?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that as well. Sure.
And just give the URL to everybody, the GitHub URL, so that everybody can check it out.
I'll do this. I can add a banner here. So that's the URL.
Okay, see all of you in the next class. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye.